Hi, I'm Mike McKee, the director of the Florida Science Olympiad tournament, and I'd like to thank you so much for agreeing to help out with the state tournament that will be on March 23rd at the University of Central Florida. This presentation is going to be divided up in a couple parts. There's going to be this first section, which will have some general information about Science Olympiad if you're unfamiliar with it. And then there are sections that, depending on what you are doing, you'll only need to watch one or the other. There is a lab and research-based event section that will be for events that are lab or research based in nature, and then there's going to be another section that will be for engineering events, and then that will be followed up with a section on scoring and scoring procedures. So everybody will watch this first section. You'll pick one of the next two sections depending on what event you're doing, and then everyone will watch the final section on scoring. So if you're unfamiliar with Science Olympiad, it's been around since 1983, and it was started by Dr. Gerard Putz and Jack Cairns as a way to increase interest in science. And right now we have almost every state in the nation and about 15,000 actively participating schools, and there are in a regional or state tournament about 6,500 teams that compete. So a lot of schools, they're doing it like at elementary school. The way that we look at Science Olympiad is it's devoted to improving the quality of science education, and we do this through something that looks like sporting events, and we acknowledge that sporting events get a lot of interest at schools and a lot of attention at schools, and we're trying to do the same kind of thing with Science Olympiad. So we use a lot of the same kind of language to bear, like coaches, and we give out medals and trophies and everything, but this is all for academic competition. Each of the teams that competes will have up to 15 students led by a single coach. A school can have more than one team, and this is going to be really important to pay attention to for the event supervisors, because we go by team numbers and not necessarily by the name of the school that the team comes from, for that reason, because they're actually competing against each other. There are two divisions, B, which is a middle school, and C, which is high school, and then there are 23 different events that they compete in, and then they pay a registration fee, and in the state of Florida, that registration fee entitles them to compete at a regional, state, and even onto a national tournament. This year, of course, you're coming to the state tournament on March 23rd, and then the national tournament this year is at Wright State University on May 16th and 17th. So here's the middle school events, and I want to point out here that there are three different kinds of events. There are research-based events like anatomy, disease detectives, forestry. These are things where they often are allowed to bring in resources and materials, and then they're asked questions, and they can use those resources and materials to look up information. There's also lab-based events. So this would be like Crime Busters, metric mastery, shock value. So this is where some or all of the event involves a hands-on lab that they have to complete within the 50-minute time period that they're given. And then there are engineering events, boom a lever, helicopters, keep the heap. These are things that they will build ahead of time and bring with them and test in front of the event supervisors on site at the competition. So depending on which one you are for Division B, then that will determine which of the videos you're going to watch coming up. So for Division C, very similar. We've got some overlap here, like anatomy and physiology is a B1, forestry is a B, but we also have other ones that are only in C: material science, robot arms, technical problem solving, elastic launch glider. And you see that these run the gamut of biology, chemistry, physics, earth, space science, and engineering. So when you're looking at the rules, you'll either have received, or I will be sending you a copy of the rules. The rules take precedent. What I mean by that is sometimes I make a mistake on the schedule that says one or two students are allowed, but it turns out the rules may say three. So the rules take precedent. Make sure that you read and follow the rules and you understand them, and you build your event according to the rules. So for forestry, for example, there is a list of trees that have already been selected. I've put them up on the website. So for an event like forestry, make sure that they're using only the trees that are on that list. You want to make sure that you stay as close and tight to the rules as possible. You'll also check for the clarifications on the national website and any clarifications I post on the Florida Science Olympiad website. But the students will know these rules very well. So it's important that you build your event, design your event for the lab and research-based ones as closely in alignment to the rules as possible. So here's an example of the rules from last year. This is for forensics. And anything that was bolded, students may bring one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with handwritten notes, blah, blah, blah. Well, that doesn't mean we're trying to emphasize that. That means that we added that from previous years. We've changed something if it's in bold. So, don't get too caught up on that other than it's highlighting a change. Anything that's allowed will be highlighted. Sometimes we use the words may. So, for example, students may bring only these items. Well, that means that if they don't bring them, they still can compete. Supervisor will provide. Here's the items that are provided. If you decide to deviate from what's in here, I need to know immediately so that we can tell the team. So let's say you've decided, well, I really don't want to use sodium hydroxide or hydrochloric acid. I'm instead going to use baking soda and vinegar for this event. We just need to notify the teams so that they can prepare. Excuse me. So then the scoring. Scoring is going to be very important for determining how you write these. And so you do want to understand the scoring very clearly. For our engineering events, we have Excel spreadsheets that have already been prepared, and they are up on our Wigio site. And I've got a link to that Wigio site at the end of the final video in this series. And I'll also be sending that link to you. But you want to make sure that you follow the scoring exactly. Don't deviate from that. All right. So copies. If you do want me to make copies of the materials that you're going to be doing, I just need those by March 15th. And after that, I do need copies of everything sent to me for all of the lab and research-based events. But if you send it to me by March 15th, you tell me, then I'll make copies. If you're making color copies, I absolutely want you to send the color copies to me because I can make them at home on a color printer. But there are also other resources that are available at the national website if you look under events.